Chapter 1824. Phew. Thank you, Mr. Zhongliang. We will definitely repay the kindness of the Confucian school in the future. Seeing this, Old Man Ban and the others were overjoyed and bowed to Zhongliang to express their gratitude. If the Confucians were willing to let Tianming enter the sage manor, they would definitely be able to get closer to each other, and their alliance would become even stronger. The great Qin Empire is our enemy, so there's no need to thank me, Zhongliang said with a fake smile. However, Zhongliang wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He wanted to say that he had been forced to agree to Dustless's conditions. If he refused Dustless's conditions, it would cause unnecessary trouble. If he couldn't even meet this basic condition, how could they still be considered allies? If this kind of small matter was not handled properly, the relationship between the allies could be broken. It was even possible for them to part ways and become strangers in the future. Thank you, Mr. Zhongliang. Seeing Zhongliang's hidden bitter-gourd face, Dustless felt great in his heart. Mr. Dustless must be joking. If anything bad happens to the Confucian school, we will need your help. Zhongliang's expression was well hidden, and it was impossible to see any emotional fluctuations. Of course. Don't worry, Mr. Zhongliang. If it is within my power, I will not refuse, Dustless said with a perfunctory smile. In truth, there was only one reason why he had gone through so much trouble to sneak into the Confucian school. Chu Nangong. In his mind, he would suddenly think of an old man who was over 70 years old. On the surface, this person had a benevolent countenance and was very kind. He had the appearance of a good old man, but in fact, he was very shrewd and extremely eccentric. Dustless had come to this world for another important thing in Chu Nangong's hands, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. And it was during this period of time that Chu Nangong, Li Si, and Fu Su had paid a visit to the Confucian school. Normally, this old fellow was extremely elusive, so it was rather troublesome to find him in the vast Mulberry Sea city. Thus, Dustless chose to sneak into the Confucian school early and wait for Chu Nangong to come to him. This was the best opportunity to seize the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Sage Manor. In the Sangxi region, the Sage Manor's scenery was definitely one of the best. The Confucian school emphasized enjoyment. The mountains were limpid and the water was clear. There were pavilions everywhere. Creak. The back door was suddenly pushed open, and several figures entered one after another. Without exception, all of them were wearing the gifts of the Confucian school. This person was none other than Dustless, Xiaoyu, Tianming, Zhongliang, and the others. However, they had most likely changed their names. Before joining the Confucian school, Dustless had changed his name to Zichen, while Xiaoyu and Tianming were Ziyu and Ziming respectively. I hope these three fellows don't cause any big trouble. Otherwise, given the status of the Confucian school of thought, it would be terrible. Zhongliang was actually quite worried. There was no such thing as an impenetrable wall in the world. The news of him sneaking into the mechanical city of the Mo clan and helping the Mo clan had probably spread throughout the entire Qin kingdom. At this moment, if the Confucian school were to cause any major trouble and fall into the hands of others, Yingzheng would probably immediately raise the butcher knife to slaughter the Confucian school. Hey, you're already so old. Aren't you ashamed to go to school with us? Tianming looked at Dustless with widened eyes. He was quite jealous. Some people looked dignified no matter what clothes they wore, while others looked like idiots no matter what clothes they wore. The current Dustless was wearing a Confucian robe, and his temperament immediately changed. Originally, Dustless's appearance was close to androgynous, and after a bit of dressing up, it was even harder to tell if he was a man or a woman. The scholarly little sage manor that he was in had already been labeled as a scholar. Combined with Wu Chen's ethereal temperament, he more or less gave off the feeling of a great scholar. On the other hand, Tianming looked like an idiot. Because his clothes were too wide, they almost drooped on his body. Xiaoyu's shoulders and height were slightly better than Tianming's, but Tianming's robe directly dragged on the ground. You guys, be careful. Zhang Liang looked at the three lazy people and suddenly lost confidence in his heart. Dustless, Xiaoyu, and Tianming were all wanted criminals. Almost every day, a large number of ordinary people would gather in front of their arrest warrants, and even the people of the Confucian school would gather. If they were discovered by the Qin Kingdom soldiers, the Confucian school would definitely be sent to hell. You guys go back and rest for a while. I heard that young Master Fu Su will be coming soon. Tianming and Xiaoyu, you two don't come out for a while. Zhang Liang raised his voice, and there was a hint of warning in his tone. Then why didn't you restrict him? Tianming pointed at Dustless and complained with great dissatisfaction, I'm the big son of the Mo family. The dignified big brother of the Mo family is restricted. This guy has no power and no influence, but nothing happened to him. It's not fair. Where did this kid get so many words from? Dustless shook his head and left. Following Zhang Liang's guidance, he went straight to a place not far away to rest. The world of adults was not understood by little kids, and it was impossible for them to integrate into the same topic. I don't know when that Chu Nangong will come. Hearing that Fu Su was coming to the Sage Manor, Dustless was quite happy. Without a doubt, this sudden visit was definitely not a good thing. Without a doubt, they were definitely here to cause trouble for the Confucian school. Dustless still remembered that there was a woman called Gongsun Linglong, and Chu Nangong was also in the queue, as was Xing Hun from the Yinyang school. After snatching the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from Chu Nangong, Dustless would immediately retreat. As for Tianming and Xiaoyu, there was no need for them to meddle in other people's business. After all, it had nothing to do with them. She thinks too highly of herself. Dustless rolled his eyes. He naturally understood the meaning behind Shirlan's words. Chapter 1826. Tisk, TSK. I won't tell you this. All in all, you only need to know that I can enter the mirage at will. I have a powerful backer. Wu Qin shrugged his shoulders, beaming with joy and complacency. After that, he took out an invitation card that was similar to an invitation letter. This is, sure enough, after seeing the special invitation card, Shirlan's pupils suddenly shrank. She clearly found that the last person who wrote the invitation card was Yun Zhongjuan. Do you know Yun Zhongjuan? Shirlan asked suspiciously. She stared at Dustless from head to toe. Except for his handsome face and unique temperament, there seemed to be nothing special about him. How could he know a big shot like Yun Zhongjuan? He was the owner of the Mirage. Of course I don't know him. Dustless shook his head and said with a smile, however, I know a friend. His family is in the business of medicinal herbs and is often responsible for delivering goods to the Xinglu building. He picked up the invitation card in his hand and said, only with this can you enter the Xinglu building at will. Is that so? Hearing this, Shirlan did not doubt him. She just nodded in confusion and believed his words. It was a fact that a large number of medicinal herbs were often sent to the Mirage. The fish has taken the bait. Looking at Shirlan, who was deep in thought, Dustless laughed secretly. Of course, he had made up this nonsense. Where did this invitation card come from? As the saying went, it was easier to become an official if one had connections in the court. With Yueshan, an invisible subordinate, it was easy for Dustless to get this kind of invitation card. Can you really enter the Mirage? Shirlan looked at Dustless with a longing look. Although she concealed the longing in her words cleverly, Dustless heard it clearly. This was normal. Shirlan's brother was caught in the Mirage. She had always wanted to sneak into the coffin in the sea, but there was no suitable opportunity. Moreover, there were many experts in the Mirage. If she sneaked in rashly, she would definitely get burned. Yes, I can, but, after glancing at Shirlan, Dustless lowered his voice and said, "But why should I take you in? What if you have evil intentions and do something terrible? Won't I be implicated? I promise to be obedient." Hearing this, Shirlan hurriedly put on the look of an obedient child, afraid that Dustless would refuse. She raised her arms high and was about to make a vow to impress Dustless. "I have no proof. How am I supposed to determine if you're telling the truth? Furthermore, your attitude toward me earlier was simply too vile. It's better that I find someone else to go to the mirage with me." Dustless purposely turned around and left. "Wait." Seeing Dustless leave, Shirlan hesitated for a moment before she hurriedly chased after him and asked, "What conditions do you have? As long as I can fulfill them, I will definitely not refuse." This guy. Why does he have to jump into the fire pit himself? Hearing this, Dustless's mind was moved. The corner of his mouth raised slightly, and he couldn't help but laugh shamelessly. On the surface, he looked very wretched. "Shirlan, if I'm not wrong, you should be a girl, right?" Hee hee. Immediately after, there was another wave of strange laughter. Shirlan's face instantly turned extremely pale. She already vaguely understood the dirty conditions Dustless proposed. This guy is really shameless. Shirlan's pretty face flashed with anger. Since Dustless knew that she was a girl, he still proposed conditions and even shamelessly threatened her. In particular, his wretched laughter made Shirlan feel even more uncomfortable. Shirlan's calm eyes gradually became colder. "Your invitation letter. I will accept it. It would be impolite for me to decline." Shirlan, who originally looked weak, suddenly became extremely vigorous. Her toes lightly touched the ground, and her body rapidly flew over like a migrating bird. Her soft jade-like hand had already grabbed Dustless's invitation letter. "You want to use force?" Dustless narrowed his eyes, and a dangerous light shot out from the slits of his eyes. Too slow. A strange light swept across his body, and Dustless instantly retreated dozens of meters away, as if he had teleported. How did you do that?" Realizing that she had grabbed nothing, Shirlan's beautiful eyes widened several times. She didn't even notice Dustless retreating, and she didn't even see how he moved. "Ever since Mo family's mechanical city, my bounty has been increased to 1 million gold by that guy Ingjing. If I was casually caught by a little girl like you, I would have died a long time ago." Dustless mercilessly attacked Shirlan, and said indifferently, "With your strength, you still need to cultivate for thousands of years to catch up with my shadow." Arrogant. Shirlan didn't appreciate his words, and once again rushed towards Dustless. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. However, the scene was the same as before. After the sharp sound of breaking through the air, Dustless evaporated on the spot again. Shirlan helplessly realized that she couldn't catch up with Dustless's speed. She couldn't even see the speed of others, let alone catch up with Dustless. Do I have to agree to this guy's shameless condition? Shirlan thought indignantly. When she thought of Dustless's disgusting condition, her eyes turned red, and she looked quite aggrieved. Her brother was caught by Yun Zhongjuan, and now she encountered a shameless person. Shirlan's heart was about to collapse. Ahem, Miss Shirlan, I haven't said my condition yet, right? Please don't act like you are about to be violated. I feel very wronged. Dustless was depressed when he saw this. It seemed that he hadn't said his condition yet. It seemed that Shirlan had misunderstood. Chapter 1828. Dustless complained as he walked, expressing his dissatisfaction with Shirlan's lousy fan. He felt extremely unlucky to be mistaken as the real deal. Of course, this couldn't be blamed on Shirlan. When he entered the Mo clan, for the sake of some unnecessary trouble, Zhang Liang specially helped Wu Chen to use a disguise technique to change some features of his appearance. It was normal that Shirlan couldn't recognize Dustless. Forget it. True gold fears no fire. You'll know who the real deal is in the future. Dustless walked out of the back door of the Confucian school and glanced at Sherlon before walking away. As for today's lesson, he left it to his clone. Dustless was bored by the Confucian school's gentleman's path. He was used to being a villain, and the noble script of a gentleman didn't suit him. Let's go to the Mo family's new base for now. Dustless strolled aimlessly on the streets. He wanted to go to Pao Ding Inn, but he suddenly remembered that the Mo family had retreated to the wilderness. Dustless changed his direction and walked towards the deep mountains and forests outside the city. This is the person who made Wei Zhuang fail. In a mansion, a pale-faced child looked at the wanted poster on the table. He frowned when he saw the unprecedented bounty on it. He was surprised that this person could make Wei Zhuang retreat. Yes, Master Xing Hun. The beautiful woman beside the young man nodded. She was emitting a murderous aura and a bone-piercing chill. The person on the wanted poster was Dustless. These two people were Great Si Ming and Xing Hun from the Yin Yang school. You hate him a lot. Xing Hun turned his head and looked at Great Si Ming in surprise. He could feel the cold murderous aura very clearly. I have some grudges against him. Great Si Ming nodded with a bitter expression, but he didn't mention the reason. Damn you, you better not let me catch you. Otherwise, I will make you regret being alive. Great Si Ming did not show any emotions on his face, but his heart was burning with rage. Great Si Ming had her reasons for not mentioning the grudge between her and Dustless. She couldn't possibly tell Xing Hun that damned Dustless had peed in front of her, young Si Ming, and the moon goddess. How could Great Si Ming say such words that could kill? His Excellency Dong Huang said that the traitors of the Mo family have all come to Shanghai. Xing Hun did not probe further. He stood with his hands behind his back and looked into the distant void. He said with certainty, His Excellency Dong Huang is unfathomable. His astrology has never been wrong. I have a feeling that we will meet that fellow sooner or later. This is inevitable. As long as Dustless is in Shanghai, meeting him is only a matter of time. Great Si Ming agreed wholeheartedly. She had been patrolling every night to look for Dustless. She hoped that the heavens would give her face and kill Dustless if she met him. After you help me kill someone, I'll tell you where Gunya is. Chapter 1829. You're willing to accept my conditions. That's great. Xing Qi revealed a rare smile. If Wu Qin did not agree to his request, Xing Qi would also be helpless. If they met in battle, he would definitely lose. Since he could not defeat Wu Qin in a fight, if he rashly challenged Wu Qin, the result would be no different from setting himself on fire. After all, Wei Zhuang's quicksand and a large number of Qin troops, in addition to Gongshu Chou family's mechanical beasts, were all crushed by Wu Qin. With such a shocking strength, if one claimed to be the second in the world, absolutely no one would dare to claim to be the first in the world. My conditions are very simple. Help me kill Chu Nangong and take the Yellowstone Heavenly Book from him. Dustless pondered for a while and gave his answer. I can't do that. Dustless thought that Xing Qi would agree on the spot. Who knew that this guy would stare at him with a fiery face? Sir, are you joking? Xing Qi clenched his fists tightly, making cracking sounds. He said angrily, don't you know that Chu Nangong and I? No, you don't know the relationship between Luo Shu and me. Of course I know. You are just Xiao Gao's dog. Dustless replied calmly, but, so what? If you can't complete my mission, don't even think about knowing Gunya's location. You are purposely making things difficult for me. Xing Qi snorted unhappily and said angrily, Luo Shu's 6 sword slaves listen to Xiao Gao, but don't forget that Li Si is Xiao Gao's boss. So what? Dustless was still unmoved. It wasn't hard to tell that Li Si's status was higher than Xiao Gao's. In other words, the entire Luo Shu listens to Li Si. I am also one of them and am under their control. That Chu Nangong is Li Si's follower. How do you want me to kill him? Xingqi asked gloomily. He was getting angrier. So there is such a relationship. That means that Chu Nangong is on your side. But, Dustless said coldly, what does this have to do with me? You useless trash. You don't even dare to kill an old man. What's the use of keeping you? Swish. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Dustless instantly transformed into a stream of light and flew straight towards Xingqi. No wonder Dustless is rumored to be a godly expert. This speed is so fast. Seeing this, Xingqi's pupils suddenly shrank. His tiger body shook. When he was about to pull out Ju Ke, it was already too late. You're too slow. Just the moment you draw your sword is enough for me to kill you dozens of times. Dustless stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were as calm as water. When he appeared again, he was already in front of Xingqi. However, Xingqi had not even drawn his sword yet. Die! Hearing Dustless's disdainful tone, Xingqi's killing intent erupted like a flood. The power in his right arm was unleashed to the maximum, and his great ravager swept out with the force of 1,000 caddies. Buzz buzz buzz. Dustless looked at Xingqi with disdain and sneered, the reason why I beat you up is not because of any benefits, but because you wasted my time for half a day and even dared to reject my conditions. If I don't teach you a lesson, where will I put my face? Boom boom. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless's fist flew towards Xingqi. Chapter 1830. Looking at the incoming fist, Xingqi's expression changed drastically. Oh! Xingqi roared loudly and used all his strength to pull out the great ravager. However, Wu Chen's seemingly weak right hand was surprisingly strong. Xingqi couldn't resist at all. He was so tired that he gasped for breath, but he still couldn't pull out the great ravager. At the same time, Dustless's left fist was about to hit him. Shoo shoo shoo. At the critical moment, Xingqi decisively threw away the great ravager and dodged the fatal fist. Humph, as a swordsman, you threw away your sword. You want to kill Chu Nangong with your level. Seeing Xingqi retreat, Dustless sneered and pulled the great ravager's body. Damn it! Xingqi's body was pulled back again. There was a metal chain at the hilt of the great ravager. It was 3 to 4 meters long. On the other end, there was a metal collar around Xingqi's neck. As long as the great ravager was held by Dustless, he couldn't escape. Get out of my way. After pulling Xingqi back with brute force, Dustless punched out with his left fist. Caw caw caw. Xingqi's sturdy chest was hit by a strong force. Caw caw caw, sounds could be heard. It sounded like his sternum was broken. However, this wasn't the most horrifying thing. Xingqi's chest caved in and a fist mark could be seen. Pfft. Xingqi immediately spurted out a mouthful of blood. Wu Chen loosened his grip on the great ravager. Xingqi's huge body was sent flying several feet away by the punch. He lay on the ground half dead and only had a weak breath left. Weak. Seeing this, Dustless curled his lips. Just as he was about to go back, he suddenly squinted his eyes. You too, after peeping for so long, it's time to show yourself. On the left side, in a dark alley, 2 faint shadows appeared from time to time. Although he couldn't see their specific appearance, it was obvious that one of them was tall and the other was short. Moreover, their strength was not bad, and their ability to hide their aura was quite good. What caught Dustless's attention the most was the familiar scent he sensed from the short man. Both of them are from the school of Yin Yang. That brat should have formed his star soul, right? The two of them gradually walked out of the darkness. With the help of the hazy moonlight, they saw Great Si Ming and Xing Hun, one of the two guardians of the Yin-Yang school. Your Excellency has good skills. Xing Qi is Xiao Gao's subordinate. To be valued by him, your strength is self-evident. However, he was defeated so easily by you. The title of number one in the world is indeed well-deserved. An immature yet mature voice came from the astral soul. He glanced at the half-dead Xing Qi, and there was an unconcealable shock on his face. Number one in the world. Since when did I have such a nickname? Dustless wasn't interested in this title at all. A tall tree attracts the wind. In order to become famous, some people would definitely think of ways to challenge Dustless and replace him. It doesn't matter when it started. The point is that this title didn't bury its brilliance when it landed on you. You deserve it, Xing Hun said calmly. Is that so? Then I'm really shocked. Dustless pretended to be flustered. Then, he looked at Great Si Ming and Xing Hun in fear and said, both of you came with ill intentions. Are you trying to snatch away my title of number one in the world? That's not it. Seeing Dustless's fearful look, Xing Hun's calm heart rippled. He looked unhappy. He felt that Dustless made such an exaggerated expression on purpose to mock him and Great Si Ming. To be honest, I'm here to invite you to join the school of Yin-Yang, Xing Hun said shockingly, and the treatment will not be lower than Yueshan and I. Join the school of Yin-Yang? Dustless frowned slightly and said bluntly, although you are one of the two great imperial masters of the Qin kingdom and the left guardian of the school of Yin-Yang, you shouldn't have such authority. His status was not lower than Yueshan and Xing Hun, which meant that he was also a guardian. Dustless didn't think that Xing Hun and Great Si Ming could casually appoint someone as a guardian of the school of Yin-Yang. That's right. This is beyond my authority. Xing Hun didn't deny it. No one had the authority to do this. Of course, there was one exception. To be honest, this was promised by His Excellency Dong Huang. You don't have to worry about being deceived. Xing Hun finally mentioned an important person. Dong Huang Tai. Upon hearing this, Dustless murmured subconsciously. He looked shocked. After all, he had never met Dong Huang Tai before. However, Dong Huang Tai had promised him the position of guardian. This showed how much Dong Huang Tai valued Dustless. It's His Excellency Dong Huang. Upon hearing Dustless call out Dong Huang Tai's name, Xing Hun reminded him unhappily. The position of guardian is indeed tempting. Dustless smiled and nodded. Then, he changed the topic and asked, what if I refuse? Refuse? Upon hearing this, Xing Hun laughed sinisterly. Of course you can refuse. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to see the sun rise again. Just the two of you. Wu Chen snorted in disdain and mocked, in my life, what I hate the most is the kind of idiot who doesn't have any strength but likes to be arrogant. Not to mention a mere star soul like you, even if Dong Huang Tai were to carry my palanquin, he wouldn't be worthy. You are courting death. Xing Hun was stunned for a moment. Then, a cold murderous intent shot out from his eyes. He gathered a large amount of vital energy in his hands and quickly gathered it. A huge blue invisible blade appeared in the blink of an eye. Great Si Ming, who couldn't wait to take revenge, attacked immediately. He formed a few unfamiliar warlocks with his hands and a blood-red skeleton appeared. Chapter 1831. Looks like you guys are well prepared. Dustless glanced at the blood-red skull and gave Great Si Ming a look of admiration before ignoring him. His main opponent this time was Xing Hun and not Great Si Ming. Xing Hun's strength was above Great Si Ming. Of course we are prepared. You and Xing Qi are fighting so fiercely that it's hard for others not to notice. Xing Hun stared at Dustless with his eyes burning like torches. His evil face was overflowing with demonic aura. Moreover, I would like to see how powerful you are." Having said that, Xing Han glanced at Great Ming. "Go to hell." Great Ming nodded and condensed a blood-red skull hand on his forehead. A strange cry came from it. Then, it pounced on Wu Qin at an extremely fast speed. It was so fast that the naked eye could not even see it moving. Bloody skull handprint. As soon as he finished his sentence, the blood-red skull surrounded Dustless and trapped him in the skull. Bloody skull handprint. It sounds scary, but I just want to tell you that even the golden handprint is useless against me, let alone the bloody handprint. Wu Chen, who was in the depths of the blood-red skull, had a calm expression. He looked as if nothing had happened to him. This guy isn't affected. Seeing this, Great Ming opened his cherry lips instinctively as shock filled his face. He is indeed as mysterious and unfathomable as the rumors say. Xing Han frowned. Dustless was the first person who was able to talk to them unscathed after being hit by the bloody skull handprint. Xing Han naturally did not suspect that Great Ming had gone easy on him. The bloody skull handprint was dark red and its genuine energy was thick. The color was almost the same as real blood. Not only did Great Ming not reduce his strength, he even used his full strength. On the other hand, Dustless was not only unscathed, he was even humming a tune. How infuriating. You'd better restrain yourself a little. The consequences of my anger are very serious. Great Ming was struck hard by Wu Qin. His delicate face was now filled with killing intent, and his delicate face was now covered in a layer of cold frost. The skeleton blood handprint was Great Ming's proudest move, but it did not work on Dustless. Great Ming was really annoyed, especially when he saw Dustless's calm face. The calmer Dustless looked, the more annoyed Great Ming was. "You bastard, give me. The night is long. Don't worry." Xing Han waved his hand and stopped Great Ming, who was about to continue attacking. He looked at the crack on the ground under Dustless's feet and said, "Your bloody skull handprint has indeed become more powerful. Look at the ground under Dustless's feet." Caw caw caw. Cracks visible to the naked eye appeared on the thick bluestone slabs. As time passed, the cracks grew larger and larger, gradually becoming a ghastly sight. But it's a fact that Dustless isn't affected. Great Ming said in a defeated tone. His best move couldn't affect Wu Qin at all, not even the most basic of effects. Look carefully. I finally understand why Wei Zhuang lost to this guy. Xing Han took a deep breath. Upon closer inspection, he was shocked to discover that Wu Qin, who was shrouded in the blood-red skull, was surrounded by energy ripples that could be seen with the naked eye. Wave after wave, the blood-red vital energy in the skull kept attacking him. But what was unbelievable was that Wu Qin was not affected at all. The collapse of the bluestone slabs on the ground was the best example. It was enough to show the power of the bloody skull handprint. It's not that you're useless. It's just that this guy's body is ridiculously tough. With your current strength, you won't be able to move him for the time being. After a while, Xing Han gave an answer that made Great Ming even more speechless. You're not trying to hurt me on purpose, are you? Great Ming glanced at Xing Han with dissatisfaction. It was rare for him to grumble. Hey, the two of you have been talking nonsense for so long. Don't you dare to attack me. Dustless grumbled. Feeling bored, he glanced at the blood-red skull and an even stronger wave of energy burst out from his body. Bang bang bang. Wu Chen's body erupted with even more majestic power in an instant. The blood-red skulls that were wandering around his body were violently impacted. They did not even have room to resist and instantly disappeared without a trace. Boom boom boom. The houses on both sides of the street that were dozens of feet away were severely damaged and turned into ruins. Is this something a human can do? Great Ming looked at Dustless in horror. A distance of 10 feet was equivalent to 3 meters. A distance of 10 feet was naturally 33 meters. In other words, Dustless didn't even lift a finger. He just used his aura to destroy the surrounding buildings that were dozens of meters away. This is impossible. Xing Han was also shocked. Whether Dong Huangtai was able to do such a thing was still a question. However, and nobody like Wu Qin was able to do it. This made the two of them feel that it was a fantasy story. Before rising up, Dustless was just a nameless minor character. I finally understand why His Excellency Dong Huang thinks so highly of this guy. Such strength, a strange look flashed across Great Ming's eyes. She was one of Xing Han's subordinates and had a certain understanding of this guardian's strength. Although he was unreasonably strong and was the rarest super genius in the Yin-Yang sect for hundreds of years, compared to Dustless, Xing Han, who was a dazzling light, suddenly became insignificant. After all, his opponent was the inextinguishable bright moon. What are you looking at? When Xing Han noticed the strange look in Great Ming's eyes, he was extremely displeased and warned loudly, "Stabilize your mind." He then glanced at Great Ming and said, "However, although you have agreed to my condition, I still can't trust you. You have to be like Yuushin and sneak an attack on Xing Han and do something similar. Only then can I barely trust that you are sincere." These Qin soldiers obviously came with bad intentions. These elite soldiers with awe-inspiring murderous intent were the best way to show off their strength. Although Li Si used to be a disciple of the Confucian school, but now he's sincerely trying to teach the Confucian school a lesson. Fu Nian, Yen Lu, and Zhang Liang exchanged glances. They looked at the 6 sword slaves, Gong Sun Linglong, and the others and frowned slightly. These people were not easy to deal with. Chapter 1836. How ironic. If I remember correctly, although Li Si is a disciple of the legalism school, his teacher is the Confucian school. Moreover, the current Sun Zi is his teacher. In the past, Han Fizi was even his classmate and good friend. Now, he is actually trying to make things difficult for the Confucian school. How lamentable. Dustless, who had just rushed back, happened to see this scene. He couldn't help but sigh. The saying that the world was unpredictable was not wrong at all. Although Li Si had a great relationship with the Confucian school, he now regarded the Confucian school as a thorn in his side and wished to get rid of it. As for the reason, it was probably because of Han Fizi and the 7 mansions of the Azure Dragon. Let's see what's so special about you. After thinking about it, Dustless decisively went over. In any case, he was bored. Of course, Dustless's main attention was focused on an old man. This person's hair and beard were all white, and he seemed to be under pressure as he walked. However, his eyes were bright and full of spirit. Occasionally, a strange light would flash through them. Moreover, although this old man's appearance was like a candle flickering in the wind, his aura was full of vigor and vitality. This old man was Chu Nangong. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book that Dustless valued was also in his hands. Senior and junior brothers, why don't I see teacher? Li Si couldn't help but ask Fu Nian and the others as soon as he stepped into the beautiful little Saint Manor. To be honest, not to mention the Prime Minister, even I, a junior, haven't met Marshal Uncle Sun for many years. Fu Nian bowed slightly and cupped his fists in apology. Is that so? It's not easy to come here. Why don't we go and greet teacher? Li Si suddenly suggested. Fu Nian, Yen Lu, and Zhang Liang looked at each other, and a strange look flashed in their eyes at the same time. As the Prime Minister, Li Si was extremely shrewd. Although he was inextricably linked to the Confucian school, as the Prime Minister, there might be other meanings behind everything he did. Moreover, as everyone knew, Li Si was jealous and cunning. He could even frame his own classmate, Han Fizi. Who knew if he had any ill intentions towards Sun Zi? However, it was obviously impossible for him to refuse Li Si without any excuse, so he had no choice but to bring Li Si to pay a visit to Sun Zi. However, perhaps Li Si was born with bad luck. What happened next was similar to what happened in the original work. Sun Zi refused to meet Li Si without hesitation. At the same time, he said that he did not have a student like Li Si. Li Si's expression changed greatly on the spot, but it just so happened that he couldn't flare up. Sun Zi was his teacher, he couldn't drag Sun Zi out and beat him up, right? The ancient people deeply believed in the principle of heaven, earth, king, family, and teacher. As the representative of the legalists, Li Si was no exception. He could only leave with his head full of bumps. However, Li Si was not someone to be trifled with. He immediately invited the reinforcements, the famous scholar Gongsun Linglong, to debate with the scholarly faction. He swore in his heart that he would make the scholarly faction lose all face. Furthermore, Dushless, Tianming, and Xiaoyu all participated in this debate. However, the development was the same as the original work. Although Gongsun Linglong had the appearance of a fat woman, her mouth was very sharp. Not to mention the scholarly faction's disciples, even Dushless was confused by her words. He secretly gave Gongsun Linglong a thumbs up. This person's eloquence was unparalleled in the world. She could reverse black and white, turning wrong into right. Dustless admitted that he was inferior to her. To deal with a scoundrel like Gongsun Linglong who lied through her teeth, he had to give her a taste of her own medicine. Thus, Tianming was given an important task by Zhang Liang. Within the scholarly faction, the one known as the stupidest disciple was Dustless. Of course, this didn't mean that Wuchen was the worst, but his attainments in learning were really not flattering. He didn't even know the Xiaozhuan characters of the Qin kingdom. But in other aspects, such as riding and fighting, he was second to none in the top. The second to last battle was Tianming. At first, everyone didn't look favorably on Tianming, but the final result was shocking. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Tianming's little universe erupted and he won against Gongsun Linglong. After scaring the white horse away, he brought a black horse over. This made Gongsun Linglong so angry that she wanted to swallow Tianming alive. Because of Tianming, the scholarly faction managed to turn the tables with great difficulty. Trash! Li Si, who was slapped in the face again, didn't move on the surface. However, he was furious in his heart. First, he was slapped in the face by Sun Zi. Then, he was slapped in the face by Tianming. He had lost all face as a minister. Brothers, my useless subordinates have heard that the scholarly faction's attainments in swordsmanship are shocking. This time, they have come to seek advice from the scholarly faction. Pointing at the 6 sword slaves beside Zhao Gao, Li Si finally used his trump card. This doesn't seem appropriate. Without even thinking, the head of the scholarly faction, Fu Nian, directly refused. He had heard of the 6 sword slaves before. They were extremely powerful. Even a first-rate expert like Gunia wouldn't be able to handle them, let alone these useless disciples of the scholarly faction. However, although Fu Nian didn't think it was appropriate, there were some people who wanted to slap Li Si in the face today. Zichen, this time, you will be the one to show them the swordsmanship of the scholarly faction. The person who spoke was Zhang Liang, and the Zichen he spoke of was Dustless. This guy is really trying to make Li Si look bad. Is he deliberately taking revenge on Li Si for tricking Han Fei? Sighing, Dustless finally stood up. After all, he was now a disciple of the scholarly faction. Moreover, it didn't seem like a bad idea to take the opportunity to get close to Chu Nangong. Chapter 1837. Zichen. After everyone heard this address, their eyebrows all straightened at the same time. Their gazes all turned towards the handsome young man who stood up. Zifeng, you're messing around. Fu Nian glared fiercely at Zhang Liang. Although in his eyes, Zichen's attainments in martial arts were quite deep, he was still not a match for the 6 sword slaves. After all, the other party was of famous swordsmen. Every one of them was a swordsman with decent strength before they joined the Luo net. After joining the Luo net and going through a series of hellish training, every one of them became a killing machine. On the other hand, Zichen, the Confucians were in despair. In their view, Zichen was just a 17 or 18-year-old boy. How could he be a match for the 6 sword slaves? This was a classic act of courting death. But everyone looked at the unfathomable smile on Zhang Liang's face and was puzzled. Good, not bad. You're young, but your courage is commendable. Seeing the imposing Zichen, Li Si's eyes lit up. Afraid that the Confucians would go back on their word, he hurriedly said, however, the 6 sword slaves can't bully you with numbers. You can choose one of them as your opponent. 1 against 1 was despicable enough and would be suspected of bullying the weak. If all the 6 sword slaves attacked together, Li Si was sure that he would be mocked by the world. If it's just a simple competition, then it's really too boring. At this moment, Zichen, dustless, suddenly said to Li Si with a smile, Lord Minister, why don't we add a little variety? Oh. Add a little variety. Sounds interesting. Let's hear it. Li Si was immediately interested and said, if it's possible, I'll agree to it. Lord Minister, you're from the school of legalism, and legalism advocates rewarding those who do well and punishing those who do wrong. The final winner should be rewarded. This shouldn't be too much, right? Dustless looked at Chu Nangong and said meaningfully. This makes sense. Everyone looked at each other and thought for a moment before nodding slightly. Since it was a competition, it was normal to have some rewards. What kind of reward does everyone think is suitable? Li Si asked without hesitation. If it was just pure gold, it would be too vulgar, especially for scholars like the Confucians. In their eyes, money was just a worldly possession. Moreover, with money as a competition, they might think that Li Si was deliberately insulting the Confucians. Lord Prime Minister, there is no need to worry. Someone has already prepared the reward for Lord Prime Minister, Dustless spoke again. He looked at Chu Nangong with a smile and said, I heard that Nangong has a peerless book called the Yellowstone Heaven Book. Since Nangong is a hanger-on of the Prime Minister, why don't you use it as a reward? As soon as his voice trailed off, everyone's expression changed drastically. Within the Confucian school, only Zhang Liang knew the identity of Dustless. Not to mention that he was just one of the 6 sword slaves. Even if all of them besieged Dustless, Zhang Liang believed that the winner would be Dustless. However, before this, when Dustless entered the Confucian school, he deliberately dressed up and changed his appearance. No one knew that this Zichen in front of them was the wanted Dustless. Chapter 1838. This old thing. How dare he hide such an important thing from me? Li Si's expression was calm on the surface, but in his heart, endless ripples were set off. Li Si had been slapped in the face by the Confucian school, and the Prime Minister's stomach was big enough to support a boat. However, even his own people had lied to him. A Confucian school disciple knew that Chu Nangong had the Yellowstone Heavenly Book, but Li Si, as the Prime Minister, had no idea. Especially since Chu Nangong was his follower, Li Si was furious. I'll deal with you when we get back. Li Si looked away from Chu Nangong's head and finally looked at Zhao Gao's head. Zhao Gao, who do you think is more suitable to fight? Remember, this is a sword debate. Don't overdo it. Li Si said with a serious expression. Hearing this, Zhao Gao stood up respectfully. He cupped his fist and reported to Li Si, Prime Minister, since you said don't overdo it, Wanshan will be fine. As soon as he said that, a man covered in inchi stepped forward. He looked very evil. He wore a mask with a huge spider embedded in it. It was impossible to tell what he looked like. However, anyone could tell that this guy was not a good person. He was definitely not a good person. Not bad. Seeing this, Li Si nodded with satisfaction. An imperceptible smile appeared on his face. The Yellowstone Heavenly Book is mine. Li Si thought so. Of course, Dustless thought so too. Clang, clang, clang. There was a flash of cold light in the void. Wanshan's sword was unsheathed. He pointed at Dustless's throat and said coldly, "Pretty boy, draw your sword. Don't waste my time." This guy, hearing Wanshan's arrogant tone, everyone was unhappy. This Wanshan of the 6 sword slaves was already suspected of bullying the weak. Now, he was shamelessly looking down on others. He was really shameless. On the other hand, Xiao Gao and Li Si did not care. They only cared about the result. It's just a dog. Dustless lifted his lips and mumbled something. Although it was as soft as a mosquito, everyone heard him clearly. That was especially true of Wanshan, who was the closest to Dustless. His eyes looked cold. Everyone else heard him clearly. Chaos God was no exception. Brat, fists and feet are silent. You better be careful. Dustless's words made Chaos God really angry. If Li Si and the others had said something like that, it would have been fine. After all, that was someone else's identity. But Dustless. To put it nicely, he was just a Confucian student, yet he dared to look down on him. He simply didn't know how to write the word death. Even though Li Si had told him not to overdo it, bumps were inevitable. It was normal for him to accidentally kill Dustless. In the end, he just needed to do a clean job. Plus, Chaos God had made up his mind. Even if he could not kill Dustless, he was going to cripple him. He had brought this upon himself. What is he planning to do with the Yellowstone Heaven book? Zhang Liang had been thinking hard. Even though the battle had not started yet, he already had an idea of the result of this competition. Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves of the Luo net, was going to lose. Is he going to give it to someone else? Zhang Liang's eyes shone brightly. Dustless did not even know how to read, let alone a book like the Yellowstone Heaven book. Other than giving it to someone else to study, Zhang Liang could not think of any other reason. Draw the sword. I don't have a sword. How can I draw it? Why don't we fight with our bare hands? Dustless shrugged and said helplessly. Taking out the heaven-gathering cloud sword in front of everyone would be too shocking. Take it. It's just a normal competition. No need to be nervous. Just do your best. At that moment, an unexpected person gave his own sword to Dustless. This is Big Brother's Tai. Everyone was in disbelief as they stared at the seemingly crude greatsword. Everyone's breathing became heavier. Especially Zhang Liang and Yen Lu. They were all dumbfounded as they stared at Fun Yan, who had a resolute face. It seems like Big Brother wants Sichin to use Tai. He wants the quality of the sword to be better than Chaos God's. But the second in command of the Confucian school of thought, Yen Lu, shook his head. The most important thing about swordsmanship was the person using the sword. Take Gunia for example. In the original novel, even if his abyss rainbow was broken, he could still fight against an expert like Xing Han with a wooden sword. Swords are not suitable for me. Dustless glanced at Tai, which Zimu had given him. He saw Zimu looking at him with envy, jealousy, and hatred. He immediately rejected it. Swords were elegant objects. They were suitable for gentlemen like Fun Yan and Zhang Liang. However, they were not suitable for dustless. Compared to swords, dustless preferred to use simple and rough knives. "Kid, if you want to fight me with your bare hands, I don't mind." Chaos God, one of the 6 sword slaves, said coldly. His sharp longsword was already at Dustless's throat. It seemed like he had no intention of throwing away his sword. So shameless. Seeing this, the Confucian school of thought cursed in their hearts. The 6 sword slaves were terrifying existences in the Jianghu. It was already shameless enough to fight against a Confucian school of thought. Now, they wanted to use their swords to fight against Dustless, who was barehanded. Enough. Even Li Si could not stand it anymore. Chaos God was too shameless. This kid is the one. We can't change him. Li Si looked at Dustless with burning eyes. If Ruguang was replaced by Zhang Liang or Fu Nian, it was uncertain who would win in a 1v1 situation. If Chaos God lost, the Yellowstone Heavenly Book would disappear. Chapter 1839. There was no doubt that even a sword saint like Gunia, or an expert with the #1 sword in the world, would not be able to gain an advantage against the 6 of them. But if it was a one-on-one fight, what were the chances of victory? Especially against experts like Yan Lu, and Zhang Liang, Li Si did not understand. Why not? It's enough to take care of a Confucian disciple. Li Si frowned as he looked at Dustless and impatiently said, "Finish this quickly. I still have many trivial matters to attend to. I don't have time to waste. Just pick up some trash to deal with him. If we delay, things might change." Dustless was too lazy to waste words. Under everyone's shocked gazes, a ripple appeared in his palm, and a slender katana emerged from thin air. What kind of ability is this? Everyone noticed Dustless's abnormality and they all looked surprised. Everyone was shocked by this move. The unknown tachi that could cut iron like mud was shining with cold light and was overflowing with an ominous murderous aura. Holding the tachi in his hand, Wu Chen seemed to have found his original soul in an instant. His whole body radiated a unique temperament. Everyone felt a trace of indescribable oppression. There was a faint evil smile at the corner of his mouth. Everyone frowned slightly when they saw Wu Chen's abnormality. What's wrong with this kid? Li Si could no longer maintain his calm expression. For some reason, when he saw Dustless's faint smile, he felt like an idiot who had been played by a brat. At this moment, Li Si had an ominous premonition that a great disaster was about to befall him. Should I switch people out at the last minute? Li Si hesitated, and a rare cold sweat appeared on his forehead. He had never had such a headache before, even when he had encountered a difficult national matter. But who can I switch out? Li Si shook his head when he saw the cold faces of the 6 sword slaves. He would never do something as shameless as a 6v1. If it were Fu Nian and the others, it would be fine, but to deal with a Confucian disciple, Li Si estimated that he would be labeled as shameless by the world in the future. Should I use her? Retracting his gaze from the 6 sword slaves, Li Si looked at the beautiful girl on his right. The girl had a head of long and thin purple hair. Her face was covered by a veil, so it was impossible to tell what she looked like. The girl's eyes were extremely tranquil and serene, unmoving. Her gem-like eyes were as calm as an ancient well, giving people the feeling that even if the sky were to collapse, it would have nothing to do with her. This person was young Arbiter Ming of the school of Yin Yang. It's even more inappropriate to expect her to fight. At the same time, Li Si retracted his gaze from young Master Ming. He was a shrewd man. Although the Yin Yang school and the Qin state were allies, they were still 2 different people. The importance of the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was self-evident. Who knew if the school of Yin Yang would be moved? It was rumored that after comprehending the Heavenly Book, one would obtain inconceivable power. Wasn't this what the school of Yin Yang pursued? Why does he look so familiar? Although Xiao Ximing looked emotionless on the surface, a faint ripple had appeared in her heart. She kept staring at Dustless from the corner of her eyes. Although Dustless had disguised himself, Xiao Ximing couldn't help but think of a wanted person, Dustless. No matter how a person disguised himself or changed his appearance, his aura could never be changed. I remember that Xing Han was the one who came to find trouble with the school of Yin Yang. I didn't expect it to be her this time. Dustless also stole a few glances at Xiao Ximing from the corner of his eyes. He couldn't help but sigh. Even without Xing Han, the Yin Yang school still sent young Master Ming. Of course, the main reason was Dustless. Xing Han was severely injured by him last time. Even if he was lucky and didn't die, he probably had one foot in the door of hell and was still recuperating. Therefore, it was young Master Ming's turn to find trouble with the school of Yin Yang. But this girl is really beautiful at such a young age. Dustless muttered to himself. The veil covering young Master Ming's face was as good as non-existent to Dustless. He could see her beautiful face with one glance. Kid, go and die. Just as Dustless stole glances at young Master Ming, Wanshan finally couldn't hold it in anymore. It was just a fight, but Dustless's hesitation had already ignited the flames in his heart. Experts usually wouldn't get angry easily, but once they did, the consequences would be extremely severe. Wanshan was one such example. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The sharp sword light went straight for Dustless's eyes. It was extremely tricky. Be careful. He's too despicable. The school of Yin Yang reminded loudly, cursing Wanshan for being shameless and despicable. He launched his sneak attack without saying anything. This guy's shamelessness wasn't any worse than Li Si's. Despicable. Hearing this, Zhao Gao's face was filled with mockery. He glanced at the school of Yin Yang and snorted disdainfully. These people were destined to be gentlemen. That was why they would be wiped out in the end. Too slow. Dustless's unbelievably calm tone popped out of his mouth. Then, the tachi in his hand swept out, and a weak sword attack emerged. This scene was too fast. It happened in the blink of an eye. Only the top experts could see it. Pfft. Wanshan suddenly felt a piercing pain on his cheek. It was as if someone had torn it apart. It was extremely painful. Then, drops of blood kept dripping down. How boring. Ignoring everyone's shocked eyes, Dustless said, "It's not too late to admit defeat after a few rounds. Who would have thought that you would lose everything in an instant?" Just as he was about to raise his sword to fight, Dustless said something that made him put down his hand. "You've already lost. If you point your sword at me again, I'll take it as an act of seeking death. Rice bucket, back off." Li Si glared at Wanshan with his cold eyes. His expression changed rapidly, and finally, he acted shamelessly. "Sigh, I'm old and my memory is not good. I forgot to say before that this competition is a best of 3. Humph, all the rules are set by you. What else is there to compete?" Fu Nian, who couldn't bear it anymore, snorted and said, "Since that's the case, our Confucian school admits defeat. 2 out of 3 matches it is. Do as you please." Dustless immediately expressed a different opinion and refuted Fu Nian's opinion. He had finally found an excuse to snatch the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. How could he give up just because of Fu Nian's words? Moreover, what could a best of 3 change? He would still lose. Since it's a best of 3, then the next round. An unexpected beautiful figure came out to disturb the situation. Her elegant purple hair was like a fairy descending from the sky. Her light voice caused everyone to be startled, and they were unable to extricate themselves from her intoxication. "It's you." Dustless frowned. He helplessly found that the person who challenged him was young Master Ming of the school of Yin Yang. Sure enough, the school of Yin Yang also wants the Yellowstone Heavenly Book. Li Si's face turned ugly. The school of Yin Yang had a high position in Yin Zheng's heart. Once the Yellowstone Heavenly Book was taken away by the school of Yin Yang, it was almost impossible to make them spit it out. We were the ones who lost this competition, so we'll win it back. The rest of the slaves of the Six Swords suggested to Zhao Gao. Unexpectedly, Zhao Gao just asked them to get lost. You're just a few pieces of trash. How can you be brave when you're just a general of a defeated army? Shut up. In the end, this matter had nothing to do with Zhao Gao. However, the slaves of the Six Swords had lost and caused Li Si to hold a grudge against him. It was especially sad and felt like a fish in the moat. Sending a little girl to fight me. How can I do that? Dustless deliberately scratched his head and put on an embarrassed look. You feel embarrassed. That's fine. Since you don't have the heart to fight, then you should take the initiative to quit and give the Yellowstone Heavenly Book to me. It was rare for young Master Ming, who was usually quiet, to be talkative. What a joke. How can I give this thing away so easily? Hearing this, Dustless scolded in his heart and rolled his eyes. If it was an ordinary thing, he wouldn't mind giving it away. However, he was determined to get the Yellowstone Heavenly Book and the 7 constellations of the Azure Dragon. If you don't want to, then cut the crap and do it quickly. It was as if he could already see Dong Huangtai's pitiful look when he was betrayed after knowing the truth. Humph. Seeing Dustless's silly smile, Xiao Ming's eyes flashed dangerously. How dare he think of other things while fighting with her? Wasn't this looking down on her? Shoo shoo shoo. Xiao Ming waved her hand lightly. True qi gushed out, and a weak whirlpool quietly appeared on her palm again. Buzz buzz buzz, the leaves that were cut off by Dustless floated up again. Following Xiao Ming's will, they all flew towards Dustless at lightning speed. Shoo shoo shoo. The dense green leaves emitted a dangerous sharpness, refracting a gloomy cold light. Every green leaf was like a blade. Poochie. 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 In the blink of an eye, the floating green leaf pierced through Dustless's body at an extremely fast speed. Moreover, an extremely bloody scene unfolded. They pierced through Dustless's chest, and one could even see the white bones inside. Puke 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 puke. Having never seen such a bloody scene, the disciples of the school of Moism started to vomit. You killed someone. Seeing this, Fu Nian was furious. Seeing Dustless's miserable face, his anger exploded. He knew that he had been patient enough, but he didn't expect the school of Yin Yang to be so bold. Killing a Confucian disciple in front of the Confucian school of thought, wasn't this slapping the Confucian school of thought's face? Little Saint Zhuang Wuxin participated in the Jianghu feud, but you are too presumptuous. Fu Nian's cold gaze swept across young Judge Ming. The Tai-Ya sword in Fu Nian's hand had already been unsheathed, and a fatal pressure spread out. Now that the Confucian disciple was killed, he would be laughed at if he, the school of thought, continued to remain silent. However, Xiao Ming remained unmoved. Seeing Wu Chen's body, she couldn't help but feel a little strange. Her mouth moved slightly. Just as Xiao Ming was about to open her mouth, her beautiful eyes suddenly shrank. Game over. At this moment, a straight tachi was pressed against Xiao Ming's throat. Aren't you dead? Li Si couldn't help but ask in surprise. When he saw Dustless's miserable state, he also felt nauseous. However, when Li Si looked at Dustless's body again, it had already turned into a piece of destroyed wood. Dead? Hearing this, Dustless smiled. To put it bluntly, it was just a random clone technique, and it wasn't Dustless's real body. Lord Xianghua is right, but the dead me is just a piece of wood. You, looking down at the tachi on her throat, Xiao Ximing clenched her fists tightly, looking rather unwilling. There's always someone better. Although your school of yin-yang isn't bad, it's not invincible. Especially you've chosen the wrong opponent. Admit defeat. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.